Have you wondered about living elsewhere after you retire? Well, we have, almost daily. As you know, it's not an overnight decision. Hi, this is Gil
And Jean.
of Retire There, a podcast about places to consider living in during your retirement. We started this show for selfish reasons. We will be retiring in the next few years, but we're not sure where. Then a light bulb went off in Gene's head. He asked, what are others doing? With so many baby boomers retiring, there must be many relocating. Let's connect with them and pick their brains. But first, a little background about us. I'm Asian, born in Brazil, and raised in Brooklyn. I'm an engineer turned attorney and practicing higher ed law at a college, and I love working with students, faculty, and staff. And now, I'm a podcaster.
All right. I'm not Asian. Born and raised in Long Island, New York, a place I've always wanted to leave. I'm a law librarian working in a court who loves his job. We've lived in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, New York for many years and have been thinking about our future home.
So we will be speaking to folks from around the world who have moved to venues of their dreams and more. And we will share their intimate secrets.
Whoa!
Just kidding. We will offer information you may not find anywhere else, though. So stay tuned. Hi, everyone. It's nice and snowy in Brooklyn today. Our second snowstorm in 1 week. It's a sign for us to move, Gene. Today, we chat with Margaret and Larry Wage, who have relocated to Marietta, Georgia. Finding themselves empty nesters, Larry and Margaret moved to the greater Atlanta area in the fall of 2017 to take advantage of warmer weather and a lower cost of living. And they're still working. So a little background. Originally from New York, Margaret began her career as a photography technician processing film and printing black and white for commercial fashion and advertising campaigns. After earning a BA from State University of New York at Empire State College in photojournalism and sociology, Margaret worked for daily newspapers, including Newsday, and taught photography at the City University of New York. She then earned a master's in interactive media from Quinnipiac University. Her career included the following positions: a senior photo editor for Getty Images and Licensing, a features reporter and news archivist for the Waterbury Republican American, freelance reporter and editor for AOL Media Patch Publications, freelance news and food columnist, oh, that must have been fun, for Southington, Plainville, Bristol Observer, projects manager for the Marlin Company, and government and features reporter for Cherokee Tribune and Ledger newspaper and Cherokee Life magazine. Intermittently, Margaret worked for numerous publications as a freelance reporter and photojournalist. Currently, she's working as a marketing specialist for Sylvan Homes, a social media manager for clients, RDS Media, and Tops Marketplace. And she has time to volunteer as a multimedia production for nonprofits and freelances as a photojournalist.
Whoa.
I am so impressed, Margaret.
Hailing from the Bronx, New York, Larry Wage is an IT professional specializing in software quality assurance and process improvement. Companies he has worked for include Marsh & McLennan, Reuters of America, the NASDAQ stock market, Cigna Healthcare, and Mohegan Sun Casino. Larry is currently a QA lead at Southern Company Gas. He enjoys listening to all styles of music, watching movies, and is an amateur photographer. Since the pandemic began, he has taken up both bass and six-string guitar, taking music lessons from his son, Connor, who is a music teacher.
So guys, thanks so much for sharing your story on our show. As a former engineer, I remember applying to work for Lockheed Martin in Marietta, but instead went with GE and had occasion to travel to Atlanta. I think it was Smyrna, actually. And it was such a great place. I had such a fun time. So tell us and our audience, how did you decide to move to Marietta?
So we were originally thinking about moving to North Carolina during quite a few years that we were leading up to actually making a decision. We did a tour of the South, after doing some research, and we found out that North Carolina is not necessarily as tax friendly as some of the other states around it. So we came down south and we toured North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, spending somewhere close to 2 weeks for the entire trip.
Nice.
During that time, we visited a number of different cities so that we can get an idea of the different geographic locations within each state. And Marietta was one of the final places that we visited and really fell in love with it. It's a quaint town. It's got a lot of history. It's very close to Atlanta. So we knew that we weren't going to be able to retire right away. So there was an opportunity to find work. That's how we chose Georgia and the greater Atlanta area as a place that we would be moving. And then we started looking in Marietta, Kennesaw, Roswell, the different areas right around Alpharetta, different areas right around Atlanta.
Yeah, as we started to fine tune and say that's where we want to be. Actually, Larry likes to tell the story that when we came to Marietta, there's a fountain in the town green, and I just fell in love with it. And I said, "This is where I want to live," because there's so many little shops and restaurants right there, and it just felt like, wow, like this would be really nice to live here. Actually, the price of the housing price played into it quite a bit too. Like, where can we find a house that can accommodate all of our stuff? And even though we were downsizing, and Marietta, I think we both agreed, right. We fell in love with it.
Yeah, and you had moved from where?
Southington, Connecticut.
So was that a larger house? Did you have much to downsize?
No, actually, the house that we had in Southington maybe was a little bit larger. We also, downsizing, I think, more our possessions than the amount of space that we had in the house.
Okay.
Certainly, the size of our house, very similar to what we had in Southington, but the way it's laid out, it's more conducive. There's some large areas downstairs, 2 large rooms where one of them is going to be a media room. I'm working on putting up a television and a home theater.
Oh, nice.
The other side is, Margaret wants to use as a studio. So we didn't have rooms with those functions when we were in Southington.
Mm-hmm.
So the space was used a lot differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's downsizing. We're talking more about the junk that we carry around from
right.
house to house than
right.
the size of the house we're moving our junk into.
Right. Yeah, well, that's a big component too.
Yes.
When people consider retirement, because as we'll go on in some of your other questions, the amount of stuff that you have really gives you the feeling of, it can make you feel settled when you have familiar things, but can also be an albatross if you've had boxes in the garage that you haven't used any of those things for the last 10 years. What's the point? Why are you carrying all this stuff around? So to Larry's point, when I said downsize, I meant, to try to lighten up our load as we made that move.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we've learned recently that any given household has about, at a minimum for some, 300,000 items. And the more stuff you have, the more stress you have because you have to take care of it, right? And we heard in one of our previous episodes that one couple overall spent about 5 years getting ready. So much of it is psychological, so much of the sentiments and, things that you become attached to for no good reason. But as a photographer, I'm sure you guys and both of you appreciate that, there are things you could just take photos of and keep that in the memory bank instead of the physical items. And so we've started doing that here as well. What about the other factors that I'm sure came into play that you were used to in Southington? Healthcare? Is it elder friendly? Things like that.
For both of us, those issues were very important because in Southington, there was a linear trail, but for walking and jogging and such, and there was some open space, but you had to get into a car to get there. So the walkability here where we are now is much better. There's sidewalks everywhere. And that's something that we do every day. We go out for an early morning walk, and there's so many different routes that we can take. So walkability was something we were looking for. Healthcare, that's another big thing that you need to check out before you move anywhere to see, where's the nearest hospital, what kind of providers are in that area, because it changes from state to state. Like you could have, Aetna up north, and maybe Aetna isn't in a network down here. So you're literally changing everything, which you would change anyway. You're not going to have the same doctors, but you want to make sure that those networks are there. And there is here. There are a lot of hospitals here. There's Piedmont. There's Wellstar. What's that?
Kaiser Permanente.
Northside. So a lot of hospitals here. A lot of healthcare to choose from.
And that is something that we did do some research on before we came down. Make sure, because we were planning on retiring. So, someday we'll be old. And we have to worry about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you have to go to Atlanta for a hospital, how far is Atlanta?
We're probably around 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes to the outskirts of Atlanta. And then once you're in Atlanta, it's fairly large, not like Brooklyn and New York City. Yeah, 30 minutes. It's certainly more accessible than New York City was when we were living in Connecticut. We're in Southington, you have Hartford, and you have
New Haven.
Staten Island has more going for it than either of those two cities. So having to, spend 2 hours to get to New York from Connecticut, that's like living in Mid-Island on a Saturday morning and having to drive the Long Island Expressway.
It's a lot closer from here to get to the city, the big city of Atlanta.
Yeah, that's great.
But no, which isn't to say there wasn't good healthcare in Connecticut. You do have Yale in Connecticut.
Yale. Research centers. And so I guess you're also close to the international airport, about 30 minutes.
Yeah, we're about 30 minutes out from Atlanta Airport.
Maybe a little bit more than 30 minutes, but
but it's very doable.
Something that's nice is that we have MARTA, which is the mass transit, and a lot of the stations you can park your car, and if you park it for more than 24 hours, they charge you $8 a day for parking. One of the lines ends at the airport, so you could drive over, park your car, train down. The station is in the airport.
Wow, that's great.
And you're only paying $8 a day. That's better than almost anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are parking meters that you pay more than $8.
Yes.
I know they went up even in Brooklyn. It's like you go to Manhattan and it's like $16 for what is it for a day? You might as well put it in the lot, if you get there an early bird.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So we've heard, we recently met some people in North Carolina and it sounded perfect. What did you think of North Carolina?
Right. Was it the taxes that made you go to Georgia over North Carolina?
I think that taxes were part of it. Also, like I said, we knew that we were going to have to continue working. And if you look at where most of the jobs that would be conducive to our skill sets were located, that would be in Charlotte, some
Raleigh,
right, which is much further out than we were interested in going. It had to do, I think, a lot with the neighborhoods that were surrounding where the jobs were going to be, so that we could move someplace and find ourselves work. And then once we decided that we were finished working and we retired, we were already in a house. We didn't have to think about relocating again.
Sure.
But I think Georgia is tax friendlier than North Carolina.
Is,
and I think South Carolina may even be more tax friendly, but you have to do your research. I'm sort of checking that out now as I go along with contemplating, when to take Social Security. But that's a conversation everyone has to have with their financial planner.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And for us, South Carolina was kind of out of the running primarily because of the difficulty to find work that would at a professional salary.
Yes.
Just because we became empty nesters and we relocated, we found a cheaper cost of living. It doesn't mean that all of the debt that we brought down with us, which we can't downsize as easily as the boxes in our garage.
Yeah.
So we needed to pull in the professional salary, something that was fairly in line with what we were making up north. And Atlanta certainly fit that bill.
Yeah. And by way of entertainment, there's all sorts of venues and things to look forward to, right?
Yes.
There's a lot going on. We'll have to leave COVID out of the conversation.
Yes.
There's museums, there's music concerts, even within where we are in Marietta, there's music on the green. There's one or two towns over. There's big open air concerts and breweries and art shows and farmers markets. And it's just great. It's just great. We, like everybody else, really can't wait to get back to that.
So it sounds like you have the best of both worlds. You live in kind of a sort of a small town feel, but you also have a lot of attractions and places to eat and a lot of entertainment.
Yes.
The amount of shopping and restaurants in northern Georgia is just mind-boggling. As you drive down the road, it's just strip mall after strip mall after strip mall.
Wow.
It's impossible to, as you're driving, take in everything that's available.
Oh my goodness.
You have to get out and explore to be able to see everything in all of the little shopping areas. You go to the mall, one of the malls, and around the malls are strip malls. Of other, it is.
It's ridiculous.
Wow, consumerism at its best.
Yes.
I don't think I could move there for that reason. I'd never be home.
You'd never be home, yeah.
I mean, I'm not buying much, but I love to look. So.
And what's your favorite local food down there? Do you have a local food that you like?
Well, we have found good, ethnic restaurants for Italian. We know where we can get good pizza, and we know what good pizza is from New York and New Haven.
Oh yeah,
where we can get good Italian, where we can get excellent fusion food, Chinese. Sushi was important because I don't think would we consider ourselves foodies? We like good food.
Yeah.
And we also like to cook. So I personally can't say I have a favorite, but I like to know where my favorite ethnic type is.
Yes.
Oh, great.
I have to ask you, when you asked that question, did you mean more local? Like what would be Georgia fare? Like shrimp and grits.
Yes.
I would have to say is one of my particular favorites, which is more of a southern dish than it is up north. And that's something that when you relocate is worth looking into also is whatever you're used to. Like right now you go shopping and you go to the A&P in Brooklyn there, and whatever it is that you're used to seeing on the shelves, you come down south, you're not going to see the same things. There's going to be certain brands that you won't be able to find. There's going to be certain groceries that are going to be difficult to find. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You're also going to be exposed to stuff that you weren't when you were in the A&P in Brooklyn. Right. So you'll have some new stuff to look into. You'll be exposed to a lot of different things that you're not used to.
Yeah.
But that is something that once you start thinking about where you want to relocate to, making a trip and going into the supermarkets and walking around just to see what's going to be available is worth a little bit of time.
Yeah, like up in Connecticut, the big supermarket chain was Stop and Shop, and down here it's Kroger and Publix, and they're pretty big chains.
Oh yeah,
They have a full range of products that you'd be familiar with, but it is true. Like we were unable to find, say, a certain kind of, we like Goya beans, red beans. And you would think you would be able to find it here, but we couldn't find it. But then you find it in the farmers markets. They have these things. When you think of farmers markets, you think of like a little stand at the town green. But down here, there are actually supermarkets that call themselves farmers markets.
Wow.
And you go in and they have a fish market, they have a butcher,
Wow.
they have a lot of ethnic food. So it was
And all fresh.
Yeah.
In Atlanta, there's the Buford Farmers Market, which is the largest supermarket I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my goodness.
They have a fish section that's as large as some supermarkets I've been in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's all fresh. You can get crab meat and lobster and
I don't think it's possible to walk around the Buford Farmers Market and see everything in a single day.
Wow.
Really that enormous.
Yeah.
So it's all fresh. How do they must be able to sell all of it, to have that larger space.
They do. There's a lot of people putting in their order for, a fillet or crab legs or.
Yeah. One of the other farmers markets we went to, I was really impressed. They had live Dungeness crab.
I don't even know what that is.
What's that?
You can find, pardon me?
Well, I don't know what that is.
Dungeness crab is a type of crab that's only available on the west coast of America.
Oh,
you go out to like San Francisco, and it's real popular. I don't know if you've ever heard of cipino.
No.
It's a fish stew, almost like bouillabaisse. But they're able to bring live Dungeness crab, and that's from the west coast, and they have a type there. So
that's impressive.
Very impressive stuff. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I always talk about food. And since we started this podcast, I've been really worried because where we live here, we're in Bay Ridge. And so we can see the Verrazano
in
from
Brooklyn,
our house. I have become so attached to certain, restaurants. And now during COVID, it's all takeout. And I've been saying to Jean, every time we order from a different place, I say, can't give up Karam. There is no way I can live without this place. They have this amazing garlic mayo
sauce
that no one else
goodness.
has been able to replicate.
No, there's no mayo in it. It's yogurt.
It's yogurt. So it's even healthy.
Wow.
It's healthy. It's delicious.
It's amazing.
I'll just buy a container and cook it with my other, veggies, what have you. And then we're also near an Asian market in Brooklyn now. It used to be you have to go to Manhattan, Chinatown, and now we're close to one. So I realized even when we traveled in February, we went to check out Winter Park in Florida. And how I chose Winter Park was I said, you know what? I love Trader Joe's. I know people who listen to this show always say, oh, Gillen and her Trader Joe's. And it's because it's got that Asian fusion. And I looked at the locations of Trader Joe's around the country. And I said, I would like to live within 5 miles radius of a Trader Joe's. And if I can have that or Green Markets, I'd be fine. So it is important, Larry, like you said, to look for these things because you may have culture shock if you don't have some of that comfort, the comfort creatures, if you will.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, we have found a great couple of bagel places that make the authentic white fish salad that we love, or lots. We like
smoked sable, which is very difficult to find.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and I agree with you. Trader Joe, there's like 2 Trader Joe's right near where we are.
See?
So we're very happy.
And good prices.
As far as that garlic yogurt, I'm sure that you could work out a deal to get that sent to you, shipped over.
Yeah, I'm sure they would.
Oh my God. They make so much money that they probably won't even consider it. They're like, go away.
Use your charm.
I'm sorry?
Use your charm.
Yeah, okay. We'll see about that.
I've just a question back to taxes. I was reading that in Cobb County where you live, if you're 62 and over, you're exempt from school taxes. Is that true?
It is true. It's called the homestead exemption.
Oh, wow.
And it's just something that you file once you're, a resident here. You file with your county and you get a break on your taxes.
The assumption is that at that point in time, you don't have kids that are in school anymore. So you're not benefiting from the school tax.
Yeah, the taxes are great. It's just great. I mean, as you can imagine, living up north, like the taxes that we were paying when we were living, before we moved to Connecticut, we were living on Long Island, and we were paying, it was approaching $10,000 a year. That same house today, I once in a while I look it up. I Google Earth it.
I love Google Earth.
And I see the taxes are like $17,000 a year. Here we're paying very affordable. It's very affordable. It's under $3,000 a year. It's just great.
Wow.
Right.
That's great. I have another question. What about weather? Are there 4 seasons there?
Yes, there are. We actually had snow yesterday.
Wow. You get snow.
Yeah.
Not every year, right?
No.
Not every, well, probably we get a little bit every year.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't even stick. We didn't even get a coating on the car, but there was snow falling. They were flakes. They were coming out of the sky, so it was snowing.
But you didn't have to shovel much, right?
Right. No shoveling.
Okay.
I think that probably twice a decade they'll get snow. We'll get snow here that you need to shovel.
Wow.
When we came down, the year we came down, that December, we had a storm that dumped between 5 and 7 inches, depending on where we were. And Atlanta was closed down for about 3 days.
Yeah, everything closed. But to your point, Gene, that was one of the reasons why I like Georgia, because it does have change of seasons, and you do have foliage in the fall, especially if you're really into that. Like as a photographer, you can drive a little bit up north, up to Blue Ridge, and really find your spots. But it's here, right where we live. The leaves change, and it's really I enjoy that. I didn't want to go somewhere where it was going to be hot all the time.
Unfortunately, I did, but that would be a lot further south.
That would be more like Winter Lake, Florida, or even Florida. I understand gets a little bit cold once in a while too.
My sister is in the process of moving down to the Villages.
Oh
wow!
And they were talking to us. They're in temporary housing in the Villages while they're working on getting a house. And the other day it was in the 30s.
Wow!
So,
that's unusual, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we heard from a bunch of Floridians that it's hot year round, so you have to, really be comfortable.
Well, the Villages, that's about an hour north of Orlando, I think. So it's kind of north, right?
Yeah.
So not as
somewhere in that area. If you go down to South Beach, then it's going to be warm all year round.
Yeah.
Right. Miami or the Keys, you're further south, where you are in the state into consideration.
Sure.
But something that would be interesting for you to look up. We have some friends, or I have some friends that are living in Florida, and they're posting on Facebook right now that in the weather forecast, when it falls below a certain temperature, they warn about falling iguanas.
What?
What?
Iguanas are cold-blooded, so they need to be in the sun in order to warm up. When the temperature drops into the 30s, they become like comatose, and if they're in the trees, they'll fall down. So there are reports of people getting hit with falling iguanas in the winter.
Oh my God!
Well, we will.
You're serious?
Yes.
He's serious.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Speaking of animals,
I can't say that.
Speaking of animals, do you live near and have you seen the big chicken?
Yes, we're not too far from there.
What is the big chicken exactly?
The Big Chicken is a Kentucky Fried Chicken store that has a
mascot,
a wooden chicken as part of the building, and its beak opens and closes. It sounds almost as silly as falling iguanas to somebody who doesn't know anything about it.
You said the beak open and closes?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does it sort of does like that.
That's so funny.
All right, I'm still stuck on the falling iguanas. I'm definitely not going there.
All right.
Okay. So Florida is out. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So well, you guys have covered a lot, and we really appreciate it. What advice do you have for future relocators, retirees during their moving process?
Oh, well, I would strongly recommend, in addition to doing online research, to physically visit the place that you are contemplating relocating to get a feel of the weather. Like we said before, go into the supermarkets. That's what we did. Find where, if you identify a neighborhood that you want to move into, find out how far are you from the nearest dog park. If you have an animal, where are sports facilities? If you have kids that are going to be into sports, look at the schools. Obviously, look up the school district. How good is the district? biggest advice is to visit the place live and to do your due diligence online with, the taxes and the medical, like we talked about before. But there's nothing that can replace actually going there and getting a feel for the roads that you're going to be driving, just to see what it is like, because you can't do that from afar, from the computer.
My recommendation would be to try and come up with a punch list of all the things that you need to do in order to relocate. You need to pack up your house. You need to sell your house. Whatever all of those things are. One of the most stressful experiences of my entire life was we lived in Southington for 17 years. We had a 5-bedroom house with a basement and a 2-car garage. Getting all of that stuff out of the house was just crazy. It is, talk about the junk that you accumulate.
Yeah.
We accumulated so much stuff. We were just filling dumpsters. We were giving stuff away.
Oh, wow.
It kind of blindsided me. I wish that I had thought about it earlier, all of the things that I was going to need to be able to do so that I could start preparing early. So just, if nothing else, it won't come as a surprise, all of this stuff and how long it's going to take and how much stress is going to be involved with it.
Yeah. We heard that, you should do those things separately. Retire, relocate, because they're both overwhelming psychological events in one's life, and at this stage, it's something that you, like you said, you really have to think through. And it's changed my way of purchasing, and the less you have, the better.
Yeah. Well, because really retiring, I think the other thing too is retirement means different things to everybody. Some people maybe still have that idea that you're going to have, all this time on your hand, but it may not be that way for some people. It may mean retirement may look like, working a part-time job for some people. So you're right. It means different things. And although what's consistent throughout having it mean different things to different people is that you really want to make your life easier so that when you are retired, that's the time that you can enjoy some of the time that you gain back when you are no longer working 40 hours a week or more for somebody else. Yeah. So you want that time to be enjoyable, and it shouldn't feel like this onerous task of having to sort through stuff. So I agree with you, Gillian.
Yeah.
It would be wise to sort of think about it beforehand and maybe start to prepare with your stuff beforehand.
Right. Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. No.
Oh, thank you guys so much. This has been so fruitful.
You're very informative.
We appreciate your time. Very informative.
Thank you. We had a ball. Right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
We hope you enjoyed our show. If you know of someone who relocated for retirement and wishes to share their story, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Our email address is gg@retirethere.com. Our website is retirethere.com, and you may follow us on Twitter @retirethere_. Don't leave out that _ And if you liked our show, please subscribe and rate it in Apple Podcasts. We'd really appreciate it. In the meantime, be well.